Welcome back, guys. Right, today I'm going to be brewing up a Hazy Verdant IPA. This is only quite a small batch, 12 litre batch. I've not brewed this particular beer before, so I don't know how it's going to turn out. So I'm going to focus on a small batch, and if it's any good, obviously I will scale that up next time I brew it. So this is going to be a hazy IPA style. It's an extract brew, so the base of it is going to be the dried malt extract. I've got a kilo of extra light dried malt extract and 500 grams of wheat dried malt extract. I'm going to do a little mini mash consisting of 400 grams of extra pale ale malt, and 400 grams of flaked oats. So these are the crisp flaked torrefied oats. So a little mini mash there, probably for about, I don't know, half an hour or so. I'm going to bring that to the boil with the wheat malt, and I'm going to add some hops to that. So I've got some Nelson Sauvin hops, some Amarillo hops, and some Citra hops. Okay, so they're the three hops I'm going to be using in this brew. So a relatively small amount in the actual boil itself. So with 10 minutes to go on the boil, I'll be adding 13 grams of each of these hops. I'm going to switch it off, put it into the fermenter, get it all fermenting with the, I'm obviously going to be using the Hazy Verdant IPA yeast for this as well. So I'm going to be fermenting it out, and after 2 days, I will be adding 12 grams each of these hops. And then with 2 days to go to the end of before I bottle it, or before I cold crash it, whatever, I'm going to add 25 grams of each. So it's a double dry hop. So some at the start of when it's active fermentation, and some at the end when it's all finished. So in total, I think there's 150 grams of hops going into this 12 litre batch. So fairly generous on the hops. The yeast is going to bring some nice fruity apricot-y type flavours to it as well. So I'm looking for a nice hazy, thick, if you like, very hoppy brew. This is going to finish up around 6.4%. So I'm keeping it within the style guidelines. It's probably a bit stronger than I would normally go for. I tend to prefer beers with slightly lower ABV, but I want to brew it as it's intended, and yeah, so it should be good. So first stage of this is getting these grains mashed. So I'm gonna heat up some water, about 6 litres of water in a pot, to, I don't know, just over 65 degrees. I don't know, probably about 67 degrees, I guess, to account for the dipping temperature that I have when I put the grains in. Put the grains in, let that mash for half an hour or so, remove the grains and add my wheat, bring it up to a boil, add my hops. So it should be fairly straightforward. And that's it really. So, all right, I'm gonna get going. I'll take some footage on the way, and yeah, we'll get it underway. Let's get brewing. All right, I've got my grains weighed out, so there's 800 grams in total. So I've got one of these kind of small brew in a bag type things, which I'm just going to insert into my pot. So I've got some water that's come up to temperature over here, 66 degrees. So I might just give that a little boost actually, give it a couple more degrees. So I'll get it up to about 68. So once I put the grains in, that'll bring the temperature back down to probably closer to 65, which is where I want to be for my mash. So yeah, that's how it's going. All right, now time to put the grains into my pot for mashing. So I'm going to do this gently. Probably not going to be able to do this very well one-handed, so do this in stages. All right, just give it a good mix, make sure there are no kind of dough balls in here, it's clumped together. And I'm going to get the lid on, get this wrapped up, and let it do its thing for half an hour. Okay, so the grains have been mashing for just over half an hour now, so I'm going to remove this bag. Nice malty wort that I'm left with. Smells pretty good. I'm just going to let that drain off for a bit and then get it on the boil. Okay, so we're now at a nice rolling boil. I think I misspoke in the first part of the video and said I was going to do a 15-minute boil. What I actually meant was I'm going to do a 30-minute boil, but I'm not actually going to add my hops in till the last 10 minutes. So I'm going to put the timer on for 20 minutes, let this boil for 20 minutes, and then I'll add my hops in for another 10 minutes. Right, this has been boiling for just over 20 minutes now, so I'm going to add in my hops. So there's only this one hop addition. I'm going to put these in for 10 minutes. I did change my mind slightly. I didn't put the wheat malt extract in, left that out. I'm going to add that in with the other malt extract at the end of the boil before it goes into the fermentation bucket. So it's just the stuff, just the wort that I've got from the mashed grains basically that I'm boiling here. Right, in go the hops and set the time for 10 minutes. Okay, back for the testing. The most rewarding part of homebrewing. So this has now been in the bottle for just over 2 weeks. I carved it in these plastic bottles with just under a teaspoon of sugar. So I cold crashed it for a couple of days. I bottled it straight from the fermenter because what I was trying to do is reduce the contact with oxygen, so I didn't want it to become oxidized. So straight from the fermenter into a bottle, squeezed the air out, done the lid up tight, and left it for about a week. The bottles were rock hard within a few days, and they've been sitting outside for about a week. So yeah, what can I say? You saw the brewing process. It went through a 2-stage dry hopping. So I dry hopped at Heikrausen, so I had one dry hop then, and then I did a second dry hop when the fermentation had finished, which is about 9 days, I think. Left that at 15 degrees, so I actually dropped the temperature to 15 degrees before I dry hopped. Left that for 2 days, and then I cold crashed it for 2 days. So let's have a look, see what it looks like. It's smells pretty fantastic, I have to say, straight out of the bottle. It's nice and hazy, as we can see already. Well carbonated. Hopefully I can get this in the glass. That'll do. Yeah, so carbonation is always a bit hit or miss, especially for me. Not my strong point. I mean, it's well carbonated. It's not massively over carbonated, but that'll do, I would say. So as you can see, nice big head on the top. In terms of colour, I'd say that's pretty much spot on, exactly what I was hoping for. So it's a nice light kind of yellowy orange hazy colour, exactly what I was hoping for. So pretty pleased with that, and it's got a nice sort of tight foamy head on the top. So in terms of appearance, I'd say hit the nail on the head with that, exactly what I was hoping for. I can tell you now that there's big wafts of hops coming off of this already, and it's like a big tropical fruit bomb, which I'm not kind of exactly surprised about, because that's, you know, what I was aiming at. But I've used all these hops before, and I've used them in a dry hop, but I've never been able to get these big tropical notes out. So I think that it's either the verdant yeast or a combination of the verdant yeast and the early dry hopping. So after day 2 at High Krausen, you get that bio transformation of the hop. So I think that that's brought out a lot of these tropical notes, which I've not really got out of those hops by just kind of dumping them in at the end of fermentation. So particularly with things like Citra, I've kind of noticed a lot of sort of berry and stone fruit type aromas when using it just as a straight dry hop, but this is completely different. There's a lot of strong sort of mango and pineapple and papaya, those type of fruits coming through. There's also some nice citrusy notes, which I guess is from the sort of Amarillo, sort of those sort of tangerine orange type citrus notes coming through. But it smells absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to dive in anyway. Let's see what it tastes like. Really good. Really, really good. I'm really happy with that. I mean, it's strong in a tropical aroma, but there's also a nice taste to it as well. So those sort of tropical notes are there on the taste as well. It's well balanced. There's a nice assertive bitterness to it. So it's kind of punching through those fruity, hoppy notes, and a nice soft mouthfeel that's coming from the use of the wheat malt and the rolled oats as well. So it's really good. You know, it's a bit more bitter than like a Nipa or something like that, but you know, I kind of like that little bit of bitterness to it. Really drinkable. So this finished out just at under 6%, I think. So yeah, I think you'd have to be careful on that. It's a little bit kind of a danger juice type situation. Very drinkable, quite strong, and very, very delicious. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. I would most certainly do it again. I might try and dial it down a little bit. So I'd like to kind of experiment with that verdant yeast again, but kind of maybe in a bit more of a kind of sessionable beer. So a bit lower ABV, 4.5% sort of maybe. But I don't know how well that would work with you know, that amount of hops. So I'll have to have a play around with it, and certainly I'd be interested in anybody else's experiences of using verdant yeast and maybe slightly lower ABV beers, more sort of sessionable pale ale or something like that. So yeah, if anyone's got any tips on that, then please leave a comment below. But yeah, I'm overall very, very happy with that. I'd say maybe even one of the best beers I've brewed, I'd say. And for it being an extract, don't be put off. A lot of people kind of go, you know, think of extract brewing as like this stepping stone in between brewing beer kits and going all grain. But this is as good as any kind of all grain brews that I've done. You know, I'm no expert in that field, but I do kind of do brew in a bag stuff, and I do, when I've got time at least, do some all grain brewing. But this is as good as any all grain brews that I've done, and it's certainly, I wouldn't see that as a kind of stepping stone beer. I would readily brew that again and give that to friends and stuff like that. So yeah, really happy. would definitely do it again. As I say, probably dial it down a little bit, but I'm certainly going to enjoy the ones that I've got. Maybe just one or two at a time, but yeah, it's a definite thumbs up from me. And yeah, cheers everyone.